Lieutenant Governor, we'll let you ask Councilmember Williams a question for the cross-examination round.
Sure. I just have a simple question. A yes or no answer is fine. Have you returned the illegal corporate campaign contributions that your campaign took that you said you'd return 6 weeks ago?
Thank you for that question. By the way, I just 2 days ago received the findings from the Board of Education, but we didn't wait for those findings.
Board of Elections.
The Board of Elections, I'm sorry. We didn't wait for those findings. We began to return the money immediately. We've made 1 of 3 payments. We will be making the second this week. We will be in full compliance at the end of this campaign. What is interesting, though, after my story came out, other stories of people running for statewide office, including the governor, Andrew Cuomo, made the same error I did. But the Lieutenant Governor, as per the past 4 years, has been fully silent on Andrew Cuomo's illegal contribution acceptance. Also, if we want to look at things like finances, the Lieutenant Governor mentioned ExxonMobil. If you look at the finances, tens of thousands of investments in things like ExxonMobil, Philip Morris, that's harming black and brown communities. You see the ads all over. JP Morgan Chase, that has fueled the foreclosure crisis, which is something.
I'm going to stop you there. You've gone well beyond answering her question directly, but that's okay. I'll give you a few seconds to respond.
No, and I think the difference is that, you know, for someone who's been an elected official for 10 years, to claim not having knowledge of the proper way to file out disclosure, politicians for 10 years ought to know better. They can't claim that they didn't understand the rules. And so I believe in transparency, full disclosure. Why I thought it should not have been so difficult to have taxes released so we can know what deductions you're taking if people want to raise questions about whether or not they're appropriate. I believe when you run for office, you are held to the highest of standards. And disclosure is something I've called for, transparency. Even when I was running against Chris Collins, as a member of Congress, they said, show us your taxes, tell us about your financial dealings, and look where he is today. So it's something I've always asked for, and I think that all of us should be welcoming the opportunity. And yes, people talk about my finances because I've disclosed them. I didn't have to be pulled to this kicking and screaming. I did it willingly. I've done it for 10 straight years. It should be part of the process without resistance.
Okay. And Councilmember Williams?
Well, there wasn't resistance. I just wanted to have a debate, one that was fused. After the debate was set, I actually did release it. But all the things about transparency, for some reason you don't ask the same questions to Andrew Cuomo, who made the same error.
Please ask your question.
But I do want to say thank you for joining. In 2012, the Congressional Black Caucus and the Democratic Congress Democratic Congressional Committee walked out of the congressional chambers. You instead stayed with the Republicans and at the behest of the NRA voted to hold in contempt the first black attorney general appointed by the first black president. I'm wondering if you understand why that, combined with the recent undertones of race and class in recent ads, have civil rights leaders concerned about your campaign's understanding and sensitivities around race and class issues.
I'm very happy to address this issue. I would say that there was a time when individuals like myself, running in the most Republican district in the state of New York, trying to stay there so I could continue to fight with our leadership and with President Barack Obama, have said that we need full disclosure. And I'm sorry, I support our president, I support Eric Holder on everything else he did. But in this one instance, he did not turn over information that was requested by a co-equal branch of government as a member of Congress. I thought he had a responsibility to do so. I held him to the same standard when Democrats were in charge and they asked for information from George Bush, they did the same thing. So it was simply a matter of how our government functions, and I thought that the information that was requested by an oversight committee in Congress should have been given. But I have stood with Eric Holder on so many other issues, and President Obama, who called me after I lost my seat in Congress because I would not abandon him. To my own detriment, I love that seat in Congress, and I lost it by 1% because I would not walk away from him and what he asked me to do in fighting for the Affordable Care Act. He said, Kathy, it is a loss to our country that you lost your seat in Congress.
And let me just follow up that's a minute, but the ad that your campaign released, some comments from a supporter, there's been a lot of blowback in terms of racial class undertones. Do you have a response to what Mr. Williams asked you about that?
Yeah, I think that we can use opportunities to elevate the conversation. Absolutely, the reference to what a supporter did, I think it was very clear. It was nothing to do with my campaign. Supporters say and do a lot of different things. But you know what? I look at opportunities. And perhaps the council member and I can engage in this conversation to kind of elevate this. And if there's concerns or questions, let's continue a positive conversation in the right direction. And I'm willing to do that.